Hello everyone, it's Alan again, and I just kind of want to go over a little bit of the JavaScript that I added, or technically jQuery that I added to the AltosWeb page. Anyhow, to explain what it is visually, I guess when you see "bring the rain," this text that's on top of the image here, it's not actually in the HTML code per se. I'm inserting it into the page via jQuery. One of the other things I'm doing is on the click event, when you actually click on the image, you get a full screen version of it. You'll notice that if you look at the code for the images, there's no A tag actually around the image. So you might be asking yourself, where does that link come in? How does that click get added? One of the other things I wanted to illustrate was how you could pull the file name, bring the rain, for example, and use that as the alt text. So in my code, I don't actually have any alt text, but in the JavaScript, or in the jQuery, I'm going to use the file name to fill that alt text area. So all in all, there's a couple things that I am doing with jQuery that's going to be interesting and very see how well people take to the idea of what JavaScript can do. Hopefully, you're taking this class in conjunction or have already taken the Java programming class. So some of the concepts won't be too difficult, such as a for loop or an each loop. Anyhow, this is the code, and it's not very difficult. It's about 25 lines, including comments and an author section at the top. jQuery is a plugin that's open. You can go out to the jQuery website and download and install it. I think it's open source. You can get a development version and do your own. There's also a new version that doesn't support 7, 8, and 9 that I think has a much smaller footprint than the current version, which I pulled off the current version that supports legacy browsers. Anyhow, every jQuery document is going to, pretty much every jQuery document is going to start off with a document.ready function. This basically says that when the page is ready, then I can start doing things. It's kind of the equivalent of a public static void main string arg statement in Java that is like your mainline program that begins everything. And document.ready function is that. And you can see that I have everything indented here, so this is the kind of closing statement for that and jQuery. Um, so anyway, once the document's ready, what I want to do is I want to go through each of the images that I have in my backgrounds div, and I want to do things with that image, more or less. So this statement here, specifically the $sign to this part, is basically collecting all the images within the my backgrounds container. The separator dot is going to be calling the function each, which each is kind of like a for loop in Java, where it's going to iterate through the list of everything that it finds and execute a function for each of those elements. So in this additional function, the function that gets executed for each thing that is found in jQuery is basically how that is read. I kind of read it backwards, so I want to execute a function for each thing that I find in this jQuery collector thing that finds all these different DOM elements for me. So for each of those, I want to create a variable, and I'm going to call a function I define a little bit further down called fixedName. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the attribute source, which is the path where the image is actually stored on my computer, and I'm going to pass that to this fixedName function. The fixedName function is pretty easy little scrubber code, I guess, where it's going to take in a string. I'm down here now, by the way. It's going to take in that string, and I'm going to define a new string for it. And then I'm going to take the string that's taken in and do some replacements on it. The first replacement here is going to turn all the dashes into a blank space, basically. So that's, and the way that this was worded is actually turning on a global flag for replacing all of these characters. If I were to change this function and do something like this, it would only change the first occurrence, as opposed to some other languages that might choose all of them. But in jQuery and JavaScript, basically, it's not going to you have to define it that way to do a global flag to change all occurrences. So after I change all the dashes to spaces, I want to take off the file names. And I'm not sure what, I know all mine are JPEGs, but I gave myself the opportunity to go ahead and scrub off additional file names. And I replace basically the beginning path of the image with no space. So I'm going to drop the file path. Basically what this does is it just takes the name of the file and turns it into kind of like a little short phrase. And it's just kind of what I was hoping to achieve by naming my files a certain way. So when that string gets returned, which is going to be, we're coming back up to the top now after this function is executed, that return gets stored into my name. And then as you can see, as I highlighted it, I use my name in a couple different places. The first thing I do is that is where I use my name on the alt text of this image. Then I add over here on the next line here, I add, let me highlight it again so it still says screen. Over here on this third line with the prepend statement, basically I add an h3 tag with my name in the middle of it and prepend that to the parent. What that does is it basically adds it to the div that the image is in as well. So it's going to be, if you look at the code and do an inspect on it, you see that there's actually an h3 tag there with an image tag as well. So the h3 tag isn't actually in the HTML source, but I'm using jQuery to insert it at that location. Finally, I'm going to add on that click. So I'm actually going to add a click function to this image as well, and that click function is going to be to set the href of the this statement is basically saying the location of where I want people to be. The href of that is going to be the attributed source. So when you do the click, you're setting the page's href to that image, which is why it flips to the image itself if you look up in the top. Anywho, that's a pretty in-depth look at just a little jQuery that can make your page a little bit easier. I kind of used it to show, I guess, be a little lazy, and I started with not wanting to write alt text, but then I decided I could use this to explain a little bit more about what jQuery is and how it can be used. You have to keep in mind that the JavaScript and jQuery can be disabled by the browser as well. So if I'm in Chrome and I go to my settings, there's a setting down here. I think it's under advanced. Content settings, JavaScript, do not allow site to run JavaScript. Hit done. Come back to your page and hit go. You can see now that there's no image, there's no text, and if I click, I'm not actually doing anything when I click on them either. And I'm sure that if I were to inspect them, you can see that the alt text is blank. It's kind of one of the drawbacks of using JavaScript or jQuery to do things in your page is that users can turn that off. Now, most of the internet has it turned on, but there are a few out there, and depending on your organization, your whole organization may have it turned off, where people are not allowed to use JavaScript or decide not to use JavaScript. And see, now it came back. This is where server-side programming comes in, and if I were teaching server, I would probably use the same example, but I would write it from a server-side perspective, so that it would work regardless of browser, and there's no way to really for the user to turn it off. It's one of the kind of the elements that I use on MGA websites to make things easier to reuse. Is I have a document script program that basically indexes folders and displays them on web pages pretty automatically. Anyway, hope this video was kind of informative on beginning of jQuery and how it's used. On the index page at the top, I had to use I went out to the jQuery site to actually get the plugin for jQuery, and then I include my site.js page there. Anyway, if you have any questions, let me know. Bye.